Hello everyone, I'm Mariam. Today I will explain about how to make a register system, and it's a project of the Python Associate Python developer. So first of all, we have functions that we need to understand. This validate name, validate email, validate password, and that's a question. You're a junior developer working in a small startup. Your manager have asked you to develop a new account registration system for a mobile app. The system must validate user input or the sign up form before creating an account. The previous junior developer wrote some helper functions that validate the name, email, and password. Use these functions to register users, store their data, and implement some error handling. So these we're gonna use them to understand what function does and for each helper in their function. So here it says that the previous developer put rerun this cell and examine the doc string of each function. So here it will print validate name and it will print validate name doc and etc. Here validate email, validate mail, validate password, validate password. So this is what it will print depending on the previous developer. But this is my code now. Define, validate user name, email, password. The three things that are mentioned in the question that we need to understand them. And then it ends like that one. So first of all, let's understand what are the three functions. So we have validate user and register user here. So here it says like that, validate name and that we're gonna add them. So validate name. This function checks the provided name is valid. And then we have valid email, checks the email if it's correct format and if it has a valid domain using the top level domains. And there is also a password, validate password. It's also a function to check the password meets a specific criteria, for example, length or special characteristic, etc. So after we write these stuff, like at the beginning, as we can see over here, for example, print here, validate username, email, validate name, then validate email, look, then validate password. After that, after we defined it, we start to register the stuff, register the user, okay? Then, as you can see here, we added something called value error, except value error. Why we put value error? Because it's important in the code. It's a helping function to validate the input, like a validation. If it fails, then it will make a value error with appropriate message. Like at the end when we run it and it fails, for example, here I want to run. Okay, let's run it. Now it's running. Okay, look what it will say because I put error here. Your solution does not look right. Secret password return true but expected value error for invalid inputs. So here it thought that the value error would none. My code has a error, but I don't know what is it. I can see that everything is good. Like what's the error? Look, it's run. Like validate name, check if the name is greater. Then args, then validate email, then validate password. It printed like there's nothing wrong with my system. Okay, so it's all using Python. So it's written here, for example, from Python function, import validate name stuff. So then we had this stuff that I didn't talk about. That here, if we have two options, if it fails, or if it not fails, if it pass. So here it says if any check fails, raise a value error with descriptive error message about failing validation. If all checks pass, return true. So this is what's gonna be about each of the validation function, about email and about password and about the mail. So, for example, we also, I mentioned before, register input because this is a register system. So the person who is gonna be that he will put the user's name and email and password. Here, how it's gonna work? It's gonna call validate user function for everything. If it's correct, and if it's correct, it will press and it will return true as it's written over here. Return the dictionary with the user detail. But if it's not correct, if it fails, then it prints an error. That's why we put value error. So valid email, check if the email address is invalid. So the output is that returns true if the password passes the checks, false otherwise. So here it's written in the question, now that you have validated that all user details are correct, you want to allow users to register to the app, create a register user function to handle the registration logic. What does that mean? It means that this code only lets the user make it easier to manage user uh, just if he's putting correct something. But if it's not, this code will also like data, prevent error, prevent what error happens, and that's it. Just for valid registration of the user, it's working. So thank you for watching, and bye.